Hello and welcome back to Dawn Chorus Writes, a Miraculous Ladybug fanfiction and audiofiction. This is the series The Truth Behind the Lies, written by Jheqia, narrated by Dawn myself. Hello! And it is part of Jheqia's Wednesday. So this is part 5. I hope you're enjoying it so far. Send loads of love to Jheqia. All her information is down below where you can find other stories. Send me loads of love by smashing that like button. Comment down below what you think of it, of what's happening this far and what will happen in the next chapter, and make sure you subscribe so you do not miss out on future parts and series and one shots to come. And enjoy. Part 5. Marinette met Adrien and Kagami on the school steps after their fencing class. "You guys were great!" she exclaimed. "Yeah, Kagami is always my toughest opponent," Adrien said, grinning proudly. "Especially when you seem intent on showing off," Kagami murmured, casting him a look that, if anyone else, Marinette would have called smug. Adrien blushed, clearly embarrassed. Marinette stepped in. "Well, you both did so well, and I suppose a little showing off when you are one of the best is okay from time to time." Adrien smiled and took her hand, giving it a gentle squeeze. "Thanks, Marinette." "Is this what you wanted to talk about?" Kagami asked, a small smile tugging at her mouth as she looked at their joined hands. "What does this have to do with a war of lies? Or is that just an excuse to ask for my blessing?" For all that Kagami had been pushing her to tell Adrien her feelings, it still felt weird to have Adrien's former girlfriend teasing them both like this. No, Marinette started, but Adrien exchanged, holding her hand for an arm around her waist. "It is a big deal," Adrien said sternly. "Someone has been threatening Marinette, Kagami, and spreading lies about her, about both of us." Kagami's face, normally emotionless to those who didn't know her well, hardened like a mountainside. Her brown eyes burned. She took her saber out of a gym bag, gripping it tightly in one fist. "Who do I need to kill?" Her tone sent chills up Marinette's spine. "No, Kagami, it's not like that." She felt a blush burning her cheeks as she glanced up at Adrien, who looked equally startled. "Look, can you come over to my place for a few minutes? It would be better if we talked in private." The red automated car pulled up in front of the school. "I don't have long," Kagami said seriously. "Can you text me the details? My sword is yours. And for the rest?" She looked at them appraisingly. "You have my blessing anyway." They both gaped at her as she entered the car and drove away. What was that about?" Adrien asked, blushing. She blushed as well. "Just a little joke of Kagami's, that's all." "Wow, I never realized she had a sense of humor." She giggled nervously. "It's rare and definitely takes some getting used to, but she tries." "Well, I have to be home for Chinese class at 5, but I'm free until then. And I let my bodyguard know I will be spending extra time with my girlfriend." He leaned in conspiratorially. "And Ali was right, you know. No one is going to believe us if it's not posted online. So I thought we could go and do some coupley things, take a few pictures and take care of that angle." "What about your father?" she asked, worry gnawing at her insides. "Are you going to tell him about fake dating me?" He rubbed the back of his neck. "I don't think so. Not unless I have no other option. I wasn't lying this morning about worrying my father will mess things up." He gave her a swift hug before letting her go. "I want to be there for you, Marinette, and I will do anything I can to make this right for you. I don't want my father to be involved." He looked so determined and his eyes so hard that she gave him a hug of her own. "It's okay, Adrien. You don't have to keep promising to help me. You're here now, and that's more than enough." He folded his arms around her. "I should have been looking out for you better, Marinette. Finding out what you told Cat." He was upset, hurting because he should have been there for her. He was her friend, no matter what her own feelings for him were, and he cared deeply about his friends. Finding a boldness she didn't know she had without the mask, Marinette leaned back and cupped his jaw with her hands. Adrien, it's not your fault. Do you hear me? This is on Lila. You juggle so much that I don't know how you manage to get any sleep, let alone do well in school, or find the time to help me with this. I trust you, Adrien, so trust yourself more. Thanks, Marinette, he murmured, leaning down slightly to kiss her cheek, which flushed like an instant sunburn. I just hope this plan works. I tend to have bad luck anyway, and I know I'm not your type, so I hope this isn't too much trouble for you. She just stared at him, her mouth hanging open in astonishment. Not my type? Whatever gave you that idea? She demanded, realizing she sounded slightly harsh. He shrugged, confused, rubbing his neck in embarrassment. You always said we're friends, and you dated Luca, and I'm nothing like him, so I presumed? His voice petered out nervously. She was flabbergasted. Adrienette thought he wasn't her type? She slapped a hand to her forehead in frustration before taking his face in her hands roughly, smooshing his cheeks together in what would normally consider a swoon-worthy pout. Now listen to me, Adrien 5 names aggress. The outside is just wrapping paper, and hobbies and skills are just ribbons. The gift, the part with value, is the heart of the person, and you have it in spades. So don't you ever let me catch you talking down about yourself again. I'll... She faltered, scrambling for an appropriate thread. I'll embroider. Swat me, I'm an Akuma, on all over your shirts. It was his turn for his mouth to pop open in surprise, staring at her with something that looked like awe. Have I made myself clear? She declared hotly. He swallowed and nodded, eyes wide and sparkling against his flushed cheeks. She stared into his bright green eyes and suddenly realized what she was doing. Her face burnt so hot it hurt, and she jerked her hands away from his face as if out of scalding water. Sorry, she stammered, wringing her hands together. I don't know what I was thinking. That was enough to shake him from his paralysis with a burst of laughter. He laughed so hard he had to lean on her shoulders for support. We're quite a pair, aren't we? He chuckled, wiping tears of laughter from his eyes. Let's just say we're even, okay? She giggled with his happiness, her heart full of the sunshine he always gave her. So, may I escort my everyday ladybug on a date worthy of social media? He stepped back and held out his hands to her, giving a little bow for effect. Only if I can take my everyday Cat Noir, she said softly, experiencing the sensation of flying and free-falling at the same time as his hands closed around hers. If she was going to be fake dating Adrien to help take Lila down, then she was going to enjoy it as long as it lasted. Adrien developed a true appreciation for small dreams that afternoon. They walked by the Seine, exploring a pop-up community market. They tried on silly sunglasses and floppy hats at a clothing store and had to run away when word spread that Adrienette and his girlfriend were shopping there. Marinette had him hide behind one of the tents. She disappeared, returning with a baseball cap, tie-dyed shirt, and a pair of oversized black sunglasses he had been wearing before. Adrien pulled the shirt over his clothes, knowing he undoubtedly looked like a tourist, but he didn't care. He snapped a few selfies of them with his new look, and they were able to wander the rest of the market in relative peace. You are the queen of disguise, Marinette, he said, enjoying the simple pleasure of walking through the crowd unnoticed by all but her. Her smile was wide and full, and her eyes sparkled. It was the same look she had at the ice rink, but this time she wore it with him. Because of him? You know you can't post those pictures online, right? She said with a slight smirk. Your father might just strangle himself with his own cravat. He laughed loud and long. "So that's why he wears that silly thing?" he crowed. "It's a bit old-fashioned, but it still has its uses. I would just think that everyday wear would not be one of them. Does your father even know he has designed a casual line, or did he do it in his sleep?" Her smirk widened in a mysterious grin. "Should we break the news to him that candy canes are only for Christmas?" Adrien clutched his stomach, howling with laughter. You have to stop making me laugh like this," he gasped, clutching his sunglasses on his face to keep them from falling off. Her laughter wove through his, a counterpoint that delighted him. When he managed to get control of himself once more, her smile filled her whole face. It wasn't just happiness that sparkled in her eyes, it was joy. Joy filled her up and spilled out of her eyes and hearts and lips, and she was sharing it with him, Adrien. Not the model which he knew he hated, not the son of Gabriel Agreste, not the hero Cat Noir, just him as himself. The quiet, goofy guy who liked puns and video games, who put his foot in his mouth more often than food, and was afraid of not being enough for anyone. "I've never heard you laugh like that," she said, her eyes still shining from their shared laughter. "I don't think I ever laughed like that," he replied, twining his fingers with hers. "Thank you, Marinette, for sharing this with me." She blushed prettily and looked like she was going to speak when suddenly her gaze snapped to something over his shoulder that made her eyes go round. "Cyrus! I've got to see them. Let's go!" His laugh rang out again as he let her pull him through the crowd towards a tent with dozens of colourful lengths of fabric fluttering in the light breeze. Silks and cottons in every colour of the rainbow glittered with beadwork and sequins and crystals. Marinette looked like a kid in a candy store, or at least a teenager model in a candy store, he thought amused, revelling in her eagerness as she flitted like a butterfly from one fabric to the next. No, not butterflies for Marinette, he thought, shaking off even the thought of Marinette being touched by the dreadful humour. She was the last person he would ever want to face like that. He watched as she hovered over a sapphire blue panel of silk, stitched all over with white embroidery that shimmered in the sunlight, and clear beads sparkled like diamonds over the hands. "That one really brings out your eyes," he said, leaning over her shoulder with a wide smile. "It's beautiful, isn't it?" She sighed wistfully and thanked the owner for letting her look and turned away. He grinned as she started to wander to a nearby stall full of paintings. He quickly purchased the sapphire sari, the elderly woman who managed the booth giving him a knowing grin. "She is a lucky young lady," she said as she handed him the sari in a plastic bag. "She is to me," he replied. "She gave me this, and it has been my lucky charm ever since." He showed her the string of beads he carried with him everywhere. The elderly woman's eyes nearly disappeared in wrinkles as she smiled widely. "Lucky indeed." She tapped the green bead at the center with the flower etched into it. "Green is a lucky color, but it also means growth and unconditional love." He blushed. "It isn't like that," he murmured, looking at the charm in his hand instead of her knowing eyes. Her gnarled hand wrapped his fingers around the string of beads. "Perhaps, but I think the time will come when you see differently," she chuckled. "But I'm just an old woman. What do I know? You will make up your own mind. You had better catch up before you lose her, young man." He bid her a hasty goodbye and went looking for Marinette. He caught up with her 2 stalls long. "I wondered where you'd disappeared to," she said, smiling brightly at him. "Did you find something too? These places are dangerous like that." She held up a spool of embroidered ribbon that glittered with silver thread for him to see. "Well, you took care of my disguise, so I thought I would return the favor." He held out the plastic bag to her. Her ocean eyes went from confused to amazement as the sapphire silk gleamed at her from the bottom of the bag. Adrien, you didn't. Why? Her hands trembled on the handles of the bag, echoing the soft quaver in her voice. He smiled at her and shrugged. Like I said, it brings out your eyes. Those same eyes went wet at the edges and staring at him as if she was trying to read his mind and heart. But it's so expensive. You didn't need to spend anything on me. You looked so happy when you saw it, and you would look beautiful in it, Marinette. She sighed. Adrien, all I wanted from today was to spend time with you. This, she fingered the nosegays with its drooping flowers, is more than enough, and means 1,000 times more than anything I have ever gotten. She held out the bag to him. Please, just return it. He held his hands out to his sides in a helpless gesture. Nope, I don't want to. What good is having to go through all the frustration and boredom of being a model if I can't spend the money I earn on what makes me happy? He stepped forward and took her hands in his, ignoring the bag she still held out. Please, let me spoil my girlfriend. She blushed deeply, with downcast eyes, rolling her bottom lip. Had she always done that? It was cute. Oh, okay, she stammered, giving his hands a faint squeeze. But just this once, making memories with the people we care about is worth far more, just like your heart is. I know, he said with a wide grin. Or you'll swap me like an Akuma? She hid her face in the bag in embarrassment. The alarm on his phone went off, reminding them he had to go for Chinese class. He waved to his bodyguard who was watching them from a discreet distance. Can we drop you off at home, Marinette? Yeah, we should probably talk about our plans some more. And have Maurice take a proper picture, he said as his bodyguard gestured for them to return to the car. The stone-faced man thawed slightly when Adrien asked if he would take their picture. Maurice may not say much, but he had to pick up a lot of things being his bodyguard for so long. He tapped his chest and Adrien took off the tie-dye t-shirt and other items Marinette had found for him. He positioned them together with the colourful market tents in the background and smiled wildly at them. And they smiled for the camera. Could you take one more? He asked. The man nodded and Adrien returned towards her. Ready to sell this? Marinette swallowed and nodded nervously. He wrapped his arms around her waist, pulling her in. Her hands came up automatically to rest around his neck, the plastic bag containing the sari dangling down his back. He leaned in and pressed his forehead against hers and closed his eyes. He felt her let out a long, slow breath, the muscles of her back slowly relaxing under his hands. She smelled of sweet almonds and cherries. Once again, he felt himself filling up in her embrace. He wished he never had to leave. His bodyguard grunted in satisfaction and tapped him on the shoulder. He let her go then, vaguely disappointed at having the hug interrupted. Adrien held the door for her as she slipped across the seat to make room for him in the back seat. To Marinette's, please. Thank you, Adrien, she murmured. For today. He gave her hand a squeeze. You're welcome, but I had a lot of fun too. So I guess we have laid the groundwork for setting Lila off balance, but how are we going to prove anything else? He leaned back against the seat, rubbing his chin in thought. Well, we can't be the only people who have seen through her stories. Maybe we should try to track down what other schools she's attended. See if anyone else in her past can help. Marinette nodded. I thought we might also see if Luca would be willing to join us in this, since he doesn't go to this school and we both get along with him pretty well. Won't that be awkward for you? He asked tentatively, considering... She blushed a deep red. No, we promised to stay good friends and we have. It's just... I couldn't be there for him when he needed me to be. But he will be willing to help us. I know he will. Sounds good to me. Anyone else you think might be willing to help us? She deflated a bit. I don't think so. I'm not sure how much my parents could do to help, and I know the teachers and Mr. Damocles are convinced she's telling the truth, considering how they reacted when she planted that answer sheet in my bag. The rose burned across her cheeks once more, and she looked down at their joined hands. I never thanked you for standing up for me that day, she said softly. You were the only one who stood by me. That meant a lot. More than I think you know. He rubbed the back of his neck. I couldn't do much, Marinette. They wouldn't listen to me, remember? She tilted her head to look up at him through her lashes, and his heart flipped over. I do, but you tried to stand up to Mr. Damocles when he expelled me. Even Alia didn't believe me then, and I mean, she knew I didn't cheat or steal Lila's necklace, but... She gave his hand a final squeeze and then withdrew hers to wipe her wet eyes. I'm glad I have you and Cat now. I don't do well on my own. I didn't really have any close friends before you and Alia came to our school. I hate to think that I may lose her over Lila. He stretched his seatbelt as far as he could so he could wrap his arms around her. No matter what happens, you won't lose me, Marinette. I promise. I know the truth, and I'm not going to let you fight alone. I'll be your champion, just like you have always been mine. Her face became suddenly serious. I appreciate the sentiment, Adrien, but if it looks like this will cause a problem with your father, then I want you to back off, okay? I won't let you be punished for me defying Lila. Besides, and here her cheeks flushed a delicate pink and she gave a crooked smile, I kind of promised Cat Noir he could be my champion. Adrien smiled at her rueful words. Cat means a lot to you, doesn't he? She nodded and gave a cute one-armed shrug. Sure. I mean, he's an amazing hero and has saved me personally several times with no thought of himself, but... She trailed off and bit her lip nervously. What is it, Marinette? He asked, worried. Did she think Cat was nothing but a flirt like Ladybug did, or was she still hurt that he had turned down her confession? I know Cat too, so it's not like it's a secret or anything. I mean, everyone knows about the puns, but he somehow always makes me smile even without them. And I know he is brave and can act cocky sometimes, but once or twice I've seen a different side of him, you know? He blinked and startled at this. I'm not sure. What do you mean? Well, the first time he visited me, he was lonely and sad. He is a hero. He could have asked for anything and we would have given it to him gladly, but all he wanted was company. And when he found out I was lonely too, he took me to his surprise for Ladybug to cheer me up. He put aside his own feelings and whatever he was going through to try to help me feel better. He has a softer, more sincere side that I don't think he shows to people very often. Her words warmed his heart. Cat's lucky to have a friend like you, Marinette, and so am I. Yeah? She sighed sadly. Friends. Hey, you know what one of the perks to being my fake girlfriend is? What? Hugs, whenever you need them. Marinette looked into his eyes then. Her normal blue darkened with worry, and he had the strong feeling of having missed something important, something vital. For a moment he thought she could tell him what was bothering her, let him comfort and reassure her, but she merely gave him that tense, nervous smile he knew so well and was beginning to suspect was false. Well, if Marinette wasn't as comfortable talking to Adrien about her worries, then maybe Cat Noir should visit his princess tonight for answers. Thank you for listening to part 6 of The Truth Behind the Lies. I hope you enjoyed it. Make sure you send some love by smashing that like button down below. Comment down what you think and what will happen next in part 6. And make sure you subscribe so you do not miss out on future treats, this series or one-shots to come. And I hope you are good and I will speak to you soon. Bye.